And we're back again with Brooke and myself on Sunday morning at 11:30, talking about this week again Feng Shui from Nancy SantoPietro's book, Health and Feng Shui, or Feng Shui and Health. And last week we started talking a little bit about Feng Shui and how it relates to emotions and vice versa. So, Brooke, why don't you lead us off in the discussion?
Sure. So we're on page 57. We just pretty much last week talked about how we need all three components and we need to pay attention to all three components: our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual selves. Um, I really liked this next couple pages. It really kind of goes through our emotions and um, emotions I feel like we don't pay attention to enough. So she says the emotional component dealing with the quote unquote bad emotions is good. These emotions are bad not in themselves, but only in the sense that either we have been told not to have them or we feel shame about having them. Because they are spiritually incorrect, especially if you consider yourself an enlightened being, but no healing can ever truly happen without inner cooperation. Your body, your home, and all your feelings must live in cooperation with one another for physical health to thrive. Otherwise, the resulting chaos can create illness and disease. By honoring your emotions and creating yourself a safe space to have them, you ultimately assist the transformation of your illness and subsequent your life. Um, I completely agree with this. I know I have lived through this year and last year quite extensively. I have studied Freud, Carl Jung. I have specifically tried to work with my quote unquote ego versus my higher self. And what I've truly learned by, I guess walking through fire is I can't get rid of them no matter how hard I try. No matter how good of a person I want to be, or no matter how deep my feelings go and I want to get rid of them, they don't go away. I can't get rid of them. But understanding them, recognizing them, and, seeing them for what they are and what gifts they do give and how to work through them, I feel is all the power you need.
Yeah, and how do we typically try to get rid of the emotions?
Well, you can't get rid of them no matter how
No,
hard
you
you try.
can.
It's about accepting
But
them.
we,
It's about saying,
yeah,
recognizing, some of these feelings and saying, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I know we said this last week when we talked about, I think for an entire year, I didn't understand the concept of sitting with my feelings. Like, sit with your feeling. What is that? It's accepting it. It's not reacting to it. It's saying, I'm really, really, I'll just pick an emotion. I'm really sad right now, and that's okay. I don't want to stay sad forever. Why am I sad? Those kinds of things, and then trying to work your way out of it.
yeah. So the idea might be to, as you say, recognize the emotions, or as you would say, sit with them,
Yeah.
instead of what we often do. And in my case, I especially, if I feel tense or some emotion, I'll go grab something to eat, and it may or may not be healthy, but in any event, it's usually too much stuff that I'm eating. So I'm kind of find myself trying to disguise the emotions or hide them or medicate them or do something other than just recognize what it is. So, for example, if I feel I'm sitting here reading a story and it makes me feel tense, instead of saying, "Oh man, I got a knot in my stomach and oh my heart's beating faster," I'll just run to the refrigerator and get something to eat.
Yeah.
Instead of if I sat with it or recognized the emotion, I would say, "Well, yeah, I'm feeling tense. That's kind of a disturbing story I'm reading, and maybe I feel some compassion about something or other, myself or somebody else." So then you would deal with the emotion appropriately instead of running away or self-medicating the emotion, perhaps.
No, absolutely. And I know we've talked about this a while back, but when so you can't get rid of something. When what was it? When you're trying to change a habit or you're trying to change a pattern in yourself, we try to just cut it off. And that's not the way we work. It's not the way humans work. You need to replace it with something. And the essence is to replace it with something healthy and not just replace it with something else. So like eating. And I think that this kind of falls into that category as well. I actually, one of the ladies I watch weekly, she has really helped me a lot. Her name's Allison Lassard. She talks about a lot of different kinds of stuff, but typically when she's just talking about self-help and inner child workings and family of origin stuff, she has so much insight. And one of the things she said is, she's like, we all have bad feelings, we all have negative thoughts, and we all want joy. And we talk about the law of attraction and things like that. And she said, so when you're not feeling good, that's okay, feel it, and then if you want joy, find something that brings you joy and do that. And I think that there's so much wisdom in that. And I think it's the same thing that you're saying. So you're not feeling good, you're trying to do something to change that feeling. And of course you run to eat, but maybe it could be, I'm going to put this down and go play a game. Or I'm going to do this, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go run. There's so many options out there. And it's just about pattern and habits. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, how will that link up with the idea of Feng Shui? How does the emotions and watching them, sitting with them, how does that align with the Feng Shui idea?
Okay, so as we go through the book, emotions are critical, and how we deal with our emotions are critical in our surrounding areas and within our life itself, or within our healthy body. So I'm going to keep reading here because that may answer some of the questions. She says, in my opinion, the problem is not in having these feelings, but in avoiding them. And I completely agree with her on this. However, working on understanding and processing our feelings until we feel complete is one thing, but getting lost in those feelings and never moving through them is something else. In the new approach to illness, everything is valuable and part of the lessons that you need to experience and process. There are no junk experiences. Even the not so comfortable feelings and issues are part of your healing process, not an obstacle to it. As you explore your feelings of betrayal, anger, and despair, and some of their emotional underpinnings, make sure that you keep a close lookout for shame. This is probably the most insidious of all feelings because it comes up and does its thing long before you know it's there, and it is often a byproduct of the bad feelings. It's upward emotional flush that runs through your body at lightning speed, telling your mind and your heart to react in a different way, so you do not have to feel the shame that is surfacing for you. So the answer to your question is, our emotions are critical. If, as we were saying, either you have this big, huge, enormous closet filled, getting ready to, destroy you or topple you with an avalanche, you're avoiding it. And which probably means you're avoiding your feelings as well about that stuff. And you got to open the closet and you have to open up your feelings and figure out where your feelings are taking you, and trust your feelings. They're not, God gave them to us for a reason. I guess that's my answer is we are our emotions and our feelings as well as we are our higher selves and our physical selves.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking that if we thought about how we treated other people with kindness or compassion, or the opposite, unkindly or shaming them, actually, in a sense, shaming might be the opposite of compassion or empathy. So if you had a friend that was feeling bad or had some emotional upheaval, you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't go to them and say, "Oh, shame on you for feeling depressed," or "Oh boy, you're just an awful person because you're not happy and go lucky today." So you
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. But we do it to ourselves. So we feel depressed and we say, "Oh boy, poor me. I'm just an awful person. I got to get out of this real quickly because it's not right to be like this." So you
Yeah.
wouldn't do that to a friend. So why should you do it to yourself? So there's that idea of having compassion with others and self-compassion for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow giving yourself a little pat on the back or some kindness and understanding to work through the emotion you're having instead of just ignoring it or telling it to go away.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend yesterday. We were talking about the quintessential why. And we're always asking, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Uh, and we never turn it around on ourselves because, it's uncomfortable. So you talk about shame, which I agree with her. I think shame is the top of the list. So we do something. We choose to do something, of both good and bad. Like we get super excited and we do something, or we're super low and we do something. And then of course we look back at ourselves and we're like, why did I do that? We feel shame, but of course we then try to push it under the rug and, sitting with our shame. Why did we do that? What did I need? What do I want to learn from the situation? And even if it's something horrible, it sometimes can bring a lot of insight and clarity into your life if you're willing to look at it that way.
Yeah, and in the book, doesn't she give you some little on various? I can't remember if she did specific emotions, but there's like little charts where if you got a particular thing that's bothering you, you could do X, Y, Z. Go down the little list or something. Am I recollecting that?
Yes. I don't know if that's on the pages I'm on right now. There's a lot of stuff in the back that I think we'll go through because we haven't even touched on essential oils. Yes, she has all sorts of different things that can help work through those emotions, and we
Yeah.
can get through that. Um, yeah.
So let's say we have an emotion of fear. I'm afraid of a meeting I have to go to next week.
Yeah.
Um, what could I, kind of in simplistic terms, what kind of things might I look at instead of dreading, fearing, uh, eating, sleeping, running away,
Well,
going around the world?
fear actually is kind of an avoidance. It's funny you use fear because I think fear is probably the most difficult one. She definitely goes through a list of them that I'd love to go through: betrayal, anger, shame, despair. But fear's so much more intricate because it's there's so many things that can possibly I guess coincide with it, because some people, we talk about like our gut instinct. We talk about our intuition plays in with fear. Also, like as you and I, so we were talking with the Dr. Mao's book, we're both water elemental people. So of course fear is massive for us. We tend to, have fear within our lives. So, I mean, fear, when you have that fear, you have to kind of face it. And I guess in the same sense of our emotions is, what am I fearing? I'm a big list writer. I love to write when I don't feel good, or when I just write. And I write all the negatives, and I always do the negatives first. And then I do all the positives, because you always want to end on a positive note. So, instead of eating, instead of running away, instead of reacting, which is what we're trying to stop doing, is reacting on our feelings, and really look into them, is, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid of this? What will happen? What won't happen? Pray about it, meditate, exercise, do something that completely does not have to do with that. And of course, like you said, if you have a meeting or big presentation that you're scared of, work on it for a little bit and then put it away, and then work on it a little more and then put it away, or ask people for help. I know I'm not very good at asking for help, but sometimes we need it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the gut feeling. There's some studies that come out in recent years that our gut feeling might be a sixth, in a sense that there's something about our abdomen area and our stomach and our digestive system that has some real sense in there. Hence the saying, go with your gut feeling.
Yeah.
Which is you can't really describe it as rational. Well, it's like saying A plus B is C, but there's something about the gut feeling which we can't quite explain, that if our body's balanced and our mind and health is all balanced, we can often rely on that gut feeling, which
Yeah.
may say literally to flee because there's a tiger after you, or it may say be aware there's a snake 6 foot away from you, but he's going the other way.
Yeah.
So there's different degrees that gut feeling would tell you to act appropriately or not, either to run as fast as you could or just to be aware there's some danger ahead.
No, I agree. I know in the last year, I've also learned, so we're always like, trust your gut, trust your gut. But like I said, I actually separate my gut from my intuition. And I've only been starting to do that recently over the last couple months, because as I learned with being a water person, is that I think your gut is still within the physical realm. And sometimes we are so afraid to take that leap. So afraid. There's so much fear involved. But sometimes on the other side of that leap is exactly what we need. So it's like you said, sometimes that gut feeling really does rescue us and we need to listen to it. And but I also believe that you still need to sit with that gut feeling. And is it a physical fear of really doing something amazing and courageous, or is it, no, I really need to not do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of see that as wrapped up in your being balanced to begin with. If you're, say, just been fearful for days, days on end, depressed,
Yes.
fearful, whatever, you're obviously not probably balanced. So
Yes.
any reaction you're going to have is probably not a great reaction, because it's just based on that abundance of fear that you have in your mind going, which translates into your body too. So your whole body might be tensed up, and there's no way that you're probably going to come to a good response to something. So you got to kind of be balanced
I agree.
before you can let that instinct and your gut feeling proceed. Anything else there in the book?
Okay, so let's keep going with the shame. Just it's a couple more sentences. So it says, keep in mind that shame will attach itself to any emotion or feeling and shut it down, along with the individual to whom it is connected. When I was a practicing psychotherapist, I always said that out of all the feelings my clients brought into the office, shame was the hardest one to uncover and work with, because it was so visceral and camouflaged itself as so many other things. 90% of all shame is learned. I really like this. This is true. The other 10% is given to us by God, just enough to keep us from going to the grocery store to purchase a container of milk naked. The 10% that we get from God is what I refer to as healthy shame, and is needed to maintain certain boundaries and keep our integrity intact. The other 90% is learned and then internalized. And I agree that 90% is all society, all culture, everything that we've learned as from when we were little kids, of what's right and what's wrong, and all our judgments.
Yep. Yeah. Shame and I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, right. Oh yeah, the idea of the 10% that kind of gives you a guideline of what to do or what not to do. So that's important, and that would happen with all the emotions, even the fear emotion. You
Yes.
need to recognize when you need to be fearful, because there might be some occasions when that would be useful, especially in previous eons where we were out in the forest hunting wild animals, or the women were back in the cave, taking care of the children or something. There would be a great need to recognize when you need to be fearful.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much today, but unfortunately, we still have that hardwired into us. And so our politicians will play on that to make us fearful of the other side or anybody that's different. And so we still have that going on.
Yeah.
And it gets a little strange when we're afraid to walk out in our neighborhood because the news reports say that we are going to be killed if we walk out at nighttime, or the guy down the walking toward us is going to rob us because we saw on the news that somebody got robbed walking down the street last night.
Yeah.
So the fear we unfortunately still are not balanced on that fear idea, because the odds are when you walk outside, you're not going to be robbed. But we
No.
have that fear. We have the fear nonetheless.
Yeah.
And the same thing with shame, probably.
Yep.
As you say, we've been taught to think certain things are shameful, or we ourselves are indeed shameful, and feel the guilt and all the associated things. And so you have to, again, be balanced to know what is a true warning and what is probably a false warning about the shame idea.
Yeah, we need to stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and do what's right for ourselves. That's huge. We walk around worrying about being judged, and we end up judging ourselves. It's that whole, we shadow each other.
Yep.
So the next emotion is anger, which I thought is huge to talk about. Anger is another significant feeling that we never quite get a handle on. We are either shoving it far down in our bodies and working hard to avoid it, or trying to express it inappropriately. It is the least spiritually correct of all the emotions, and it always comes with some baggage as well. It's the emotion that has really gotten a bad name because it is so-called civilized society. We think we should be able to control it and talk things through. When anger is used as a catalyst to get to another place, to help you advocate for yourself or needed boundary, it becomes a very necessary emotion for healing to occur. The problem with anger comes when it is not expressed, dealt with, or discussed. When it is avoided or denied altogether, it can then surface in many destructive ways. Accumulated, unprocessed anger can be explosive and can eventually turn into illness because the anger has a vibrational energy field around it with a life force. And like anything else, it needs to be expressed. When we deny that expression, we force the anger to surface elsewhere, and that place is usually in our bodies. I am nodding my head like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I was trying to think, what is anger in response to?
I mean, I know in my life, anger has played such a drastic, pivotal point. I stuff. I'm always trying to act the way I'm supposed to act, be the good girl, live as, in the Buddha way. And I have so much anger around me. I've lived with angry people. And this is true. Now that I feel like I'm a little more sensitive to people around me. I'll be around an angry person and you can just feel it. everything they say, everything they do, it's like, it's poisonous, and they don't even see it. That's just the way they're used to being. But anger is a callous. I mean, you think of civil rights movement. You think of Gandhi. I mean, I love Gandhi. I love reading about him. He was angry, and he just chose to not take his anger in a violent way, and he took his anger and placed it in a different way, and he stood up. And of course, we would never consider to place anger with Gandhi or with Martin Luther King or any of these peaceful people, but they were angry. They were angry enough to stand up and try to change something. And so I guess that would be a really good example of where anger can actually bring about good change.
Yeah, that would be a righteous anger, where there are things that you rightfully can be angry about, where there's injustice or inequality.
Yeah.
What about anger towards ourselves?
That's the same as the shame. and I bet we're very good at being angry at ourselves. What do you think?
Yeah, for some reason, in the last 6 months or so, for some reason, I find myself cursing myself when I have a thought about something I consider stupid.
Yep.
And I just recently been doing that. I don't know where that came from, because generally I don't curse at all. I don't curse out loud at all. But I've been doing it to myself when I have some thought that I think, boy, that's a stupid thought. So I'm kind of angry at myself, probably wrongly, because who cares, that I said something 6 months ago that's long gone. but there's a little bit of anger in myself that how could I say such a stupid thing 6 months ago or a week ago or something.
Yeah. I don't get as angry at myself anymore as I used to. I definitely have I think shame maybe gets wrapped up more with my anger or frustration, or like, I know, like I said, I'm trying to practice like law of attraction and trying to stay in good thoughts. And of course, as I study Taoism, I believe in good and bad. And I find myself, chastising myself for feeling down for a day, or being sad, or letting my emotions run away with me and making a poor decision. I will beat myself up for, you have to be happy, you have to be going forward. You that's impossible again. So that I stuff my anger. I'm more of the stuffer, and then whoo does it explode. So
Yeah, okay, well, very good. We've covered a little bit of shame and anger.
yep.
What other emotions is she covering?
She talks about despair, which is huge. I can real quick. Despair is another important emotion for your healing, because once you get to it, you know that you are well on your way to transmutating the energy around the illness. It is very important to maintain a positive outlook and keep faith that things will change for the better. But if deep down inside you are frightened and feel bone-chilling despair, it is vital that you get to those feelings as quickly and honestly as possible. Often I have worked with individuals who are ill and felt that remaining positive and keeping a stiff upper lip was the way they were going to barrel through. Hey, that's me! But deep inside, they felt incredible despair. Without giving the despair a voice, they remained in that part of the illness that much longer.
Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, why don't we end for today,
Sure.
and we can pick up next Sunday with some more emotions and what they are and how to resolve them and so forth.
I was going to say that's the next thing after the last few emotions. It's talking about clearing it all away and working with it.
Right, very good. All right, once again, a great session with Brooke and myself. We'll report back at 11:30 next Sunday and have another session on Feng Shui and the emotions last few weeks. and to balance your life and have a healthy and successful life. So we'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye, Brooke.